All right, it is June 3rd, 2025, and we are in the Habits of Health book, and we are reading part 1. And this is like page 34 in the old edition. So, preparing for your journey. So the world is changing at a blistering pace, and there is a real danger that we will not be able to keep up. There are signs everywhere that we are failing to adapt. There is no area more profoundly affected by change than our health and well-being. So it's no wonder that so many of us feel our health is slipping away as our days leaves us disoriented and even scared. It doesn't have to be this way, but putting balance back into our lives is going to require a shift. Achieving optimal health in today's world requires us to take charge of our own health. But the places we normally turn to for help are actually making it harder for us to get healthy. The food industry offers us tasty, cheap products that are addictive and unhealthy. The medical pharmaceutical industries are more intent on curing sickness than promoting health. Even the preventative healthcare movement takes a passive approach by focusing on avoiding and reducing the risk of disease rather than helping people achieve the best health they can. Our approach, by contrast, is about actively creating health. In part 1, we are going to start by pausing and reflecting on what is happening to us and why it is happening. This will start the process of reconnecting to what is most important to us and help us imagine a better path and a satisfying journey to optimal health and well-being. So let's start by going back in time. Part 1.1, it's not your fault that you're struggling. 10,000 years ago, there was no obesity, heart disease, or type 2 diabetes. Isn't that a telltale sign? Just getting enough to eat was a struggle. We foraged for food most of the day. If you found a bush full of ripe berries, you ate them right away because who knew when or if there would be more. If you caught an animal, you and your clan ate the whole thing then and there. 10,000 years ago, being overweight would have meant you were an extremely successful member of the tribe. Your ancestors may have made you leader. It would have taken a lot of ambition to have a body mass index, BMI, above 25. When I hear someone say, I went to a party and before I knew it, I'd eaten a whole bag of potato chips, I think, well, of course you did, because your body was designed that way. With so much nutritional energy right in front of you, your 10,000-year-old programming insists you eat it all, especially if you're distracted by a conversation at a party or what's on TV. Your cravings are being fueled by some of the most addictive substances on earth. And I can say with certainty that your next hunting trip to the refrigerator will be 100% successful. You'll bag something full of fat, salt, and sugar. Ancient humans used their energy to stay alive. If they wanted to get somewhere, they had to walk, climb, run fast, or paddle. If they wanted to eat, they had to gouge roots from the ground, find vegetables and fruits, or grind up grasses and grains. Cooking meant carrying water, gathering wood, and building a fire. So our bodies evolved to be extremely efficient at using energy. If they hadn't, none of us would have survived. To this day, our bodies fight to hold on to every calorie of energy we take in. We're programmed as if our survival is still in question. The same is true of sleep. 10,000 years ago, when the sun went down, we gathered around a fire, winding down from the day of our surviving. The amount of physical activity by day and lack of nighttime distractions would lull us into a long restorative sleep. We'd wake up in perfect balance with our circadian rhythms. Today, for most, the digital sunset doesn't occur until late in the night. Until then, we are bombarded with light and energy. The blue light of the TVs, computers, and phones flood our brains with light and stimulation, and disrupts our ability to initiate and sustain healthy sleep. Campfires served another purpose. They helped us build a strong communal bond, nurturing senses of belonging, compassion, empathy, and shared safety crucial to well-being. Today, the communal fire has been extinguished, and a digital world that creates constant contact and instant sharing of information but fails to create the deeper connections that are so important to our souls. Last but not least, the world of 10,000 years ago was full of imminent danger. As a result, we were designed to respond without thought. We would flee the scene and reflect on what happened later. Faced with a genuine threat, our bodies were triggered, a stress response that released chemicals and hormones that allowed us to run away from danger. Today, we are surrounded by perceived dangers. Most are without merit, but they still trigger our ancient programming. The result is the same threat-induced chemicals swirling around in our bodies and our bloodstream, but without the need to flee. They are simply left to keep us in highly stressed state. The fight without the flight. Today we live in a state that evolutionary biologists would describe as being of mismatched conditions, where an organism that is not well suited for the conditions in which it exists. We are, as the saying goes, like fish out of water. Dr. David Katz of Yale, obesity epidemiologist, uses the example of a polar bear in the Sahara as a metaphor to describe the conflict between our 10,000-year-old design and the current world in which we are expected to live. On the right sidebar, it says, to reach and maintain your ideal weight, you need to get on top of the inherent battle between your 10,000-year-old biological predisposition and your desire to be healthy. Let's see, the polar bear was designed to endure the brutal cold conditions of the Arctic, at least until recently. When transported to the desert, those same adaptations would accelerate their demise. The same is true of the modern world, which is why we need to talk about the disconnect between the world we are designed to live in and the land of chaos we find ourselves in. You will see that it is not your fault you are struggling with your weight, health, and well-being. Our bodies on this, and this is the sidebar, our bodies are programmed to hold on to calories for the sake of survival. So when you try to diet, you are really fighting your own nature. The storage factor. Our bodies are designed to store and conserve fat and calories for those times when we can't find food. It's a storage system made up of over 40 billion adipose fat cells, which provide a virtually unlimited storehouse to help keep us alive. We can also store small amounts of carbohydrates in our liver and our muscles, but the ability to stockpile precious energy as fat is our most critical survival mechanism. We're here today because 10,000 years ago, our ancestors' bodies got very good at storing fat because they never knew when the next meal was coming. But what happens when this perfect biologically balanced creation is dropped into the 21st century? Getting food today takes almost no effort at all. You drive to the supermarket, throw your packages in a cart, roll the cart to your car, and drive home. The only real effort will be carrying your shopping from the car to the house. That's hardly tending the harvesting. You're tending and harvesting your own crops from dusk till dawn, from dawn till dusk. Perhaps you get food at a local fast food restaurant. You pull into the drive-thru and use the button to lower your window. We don't even roll down windows anymore. You've used 2 calories so far. You shout into the speaker and place your order, another 2 calories. You drive to the pickup window, grab your supersized burger, fries, and drinks, and place them on the seat next to you. You might use 8 calories lifting a big order. 3 minutes later, it's all eaten. how far we've come from our days as hunters and gatherers. So let's do the dietary math on the hunting trip. Calories consumed, 1,500. Calories expended as energy, 12. Can you see what's wrong with this picture? The supersized generation. You might have noticed that serving sizes have grown. Restaurant portions are now as many as 8 times the standard serving size listed in the FDA's dietary guidelines. Let me say that just once more, just so it sinks in. Restaurant portions are 8 times bigger than they used to be. A serving size versus a portion size. On the left sidebar, it says our bodies are programmed to hold on to calories for the sake of survival. So when you try to diet, you are really fighting your own nature. Restaurants can be irresponsible too. One steakhouse chain takes a 70-calorie root vegetable, an onion, full of vitamin C, antioxidants, and healthy phenols, and transforms it into a 2,400-calorie, 135-gram fat fest called a bloomin' onion. And that's before the entrees. The fact is that you don't have to look hard to see that the calories we consume versus the calories we use are dangerously imbalanced. We're surrounded by food that's larger portioned and more calorie dense than anything we could have imagined even 50 years ago. We're also surrounded by labor-saving devices that help us conserve the energy we once had to exert. It's no wonder that more than 2/3 of Americans can take in more calories than they can ever use. Let me stress once more, this is not your fault. It's not your fault that you were born in a time of unparalleled plenty and physical ease, or born with a body that stores and conserves energy. It's not your fault that you're confronted by food that's more plentiful and addictive than any other time in history, with a day-to-day lifestyle that finds us at a desk or on the couch in front of the TV. A 10,000-year-old body in the 21st century. Hopefully, I've demonstrated that there's a lot more that determines the current state of your health than any lack of willpower or resolve. Our bodies inherited this instinct that are no longer useful, but are still a force to be reckoned with. How do you manage competing tendencies? The ancient instinct to eat whenever you can, and the modern aspiration to live a longer, healthier life. This is the simple truth that's so critical to understanding why being overweight is not your fault. One thing's for sure, all the pep talks in the world won't help you. Lose weight, go on a diet, exercise are words you might hear from your healthcare provider. It's sound advice, but it's not very helpful without a roadmap to guide you, especially for the long term. Your family may have felt compelled to give you the latest diet books, some or all of which you've probably tried. If you take the advice from those books, but then fall into a yo-yo pattern, what then? Even if you agreed with what you'd read, you just aren't sure you can pull it off in the real world. There's old-time positive thinking too. If you think you can, you can. Sounds powerful if it's shouted loud enough. But what happens when your boss has been screaming at you and you find yourself face to face with a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Your 10,000-year-old biological instinct says, eat it all right now. As your brain repeats its timid mantra, I am a positive and healthy person. Then the tub is empty and you feel powerless to change your life. You're not powerless. On the sidebar, to reach and maintain your ideal weight, you need to get on top of the inherent battle between your 10,000-year-old biological predisposition and your desire to be healthy. You don't have a willpower problem or a negative thinking problem. You have a simple conflict between two real desires: the desire to achieve your health goals and the desire to satisfy your instincts. Dr. A's Habits of Health takes this conflict into consideration and empowers you to take charge successfully, safely, and permanently. How the food industry sabotages your health. The food industry isn't your friend. Between sodas, snacks, slices of bread, the average American consumes 26 spoonfuls of refined sugar every single day, while your body only needs the equivalent of 1 teaspoon of sugar in order to operate your entire bloodstream. Americans consume an average of 156 pounds of sugar each year. That's an increase of 47 pounds per person in just 20 years. A century ago, our average consumption was only 5 pounds per year. So why does 21st century food have so much sugar in it? Simple. Sugar makes food taste good. Food companies need to sell food. The problem is it being consumed in such excess. Once upon a time, food business made profits by offering high-quality food that earned the long-term loyalty of customers. If the butcher sold you a bad piece of meat, you would stop shopping there and let everyone in town know about it. If the greengrocer sold you rotten vegetables, you wouldn't go back. The food industry used to be run by people that took pride in their products. The butcher knew his beef, lamb, and pork, and greengrocers knew his fruits, vegetables, and farmers that supplied them. The food industry was personal. But as food became bigger and bigger business, the focus moved from quality to profit. Today's food industry is run by accountants. The numbers they love most, costs, are the ones they can control. Lower costs means higher profits. One way to cut costs is to get a better deal from suppliers by buying in larger quantities. That's how Amazon can offer the same book at a lower price than a corner bookstore. Businesses can also cut costs by using cheaper ingredients. To an accountant, buying cheap and selling high is a recipe for success. In the early 1980s, fructose corn syrup replaced sugar in Pepsi and Coke because it was cheaper. Soft drink companies could supersize their 8-ounce bottle and offer 64 ounces for the same price. That's a great value. Or is it? Not really. High fructose corn syrup, like table sugar, is highly addictive. As addictive as cocaine, in fact. And we have a whole lot of information, element 16, if you need to hear more about that in Your Lifebook. Your body gets used to it and starts to crave it. If I were an accountant thinking of ways to sell more soda or cakes, it would be simple. I would add something that creates a demand for more of my product and keep Wall Street happy. A sweet tooth may be good for business, but it's not good for health and well-being. Our 10,000-year-old body can't handle wave after wave of sugar and other high glycemic carbohydrates indefinitely. Refined sugar and carbohydrates flip all kinds of metabolic switches that turn our fat storage and open unhealthy inflammatory pathways, and people suddenly discover that they're pre-diabetic, a position that 86 million people in the US alone find themselves in. So our 10,000-year-old body must deal with a modern world that profits by selling us the most addictive and unhealthy food there is. It's easier to go to the fast food chain than to a healthier, more expensive restaurant or to prepare a healthy meal at home. If we do go to the supermarket, we're confronted by products that are so overwhelmingly processed. They offer very limited nutritional value. They might taste great, they're certainly convenient, and they're definitely cheaper and easy to prepare. What a shame. They're also unbelievably bad for you and me. Moss wrote an amazing expose on the efforts the food industry was making to optimize the taste, smell, feel, and addictive qualities of junk food. Howard Moskowitz of Harvard, PhD, dramatically advanced individual consumption by engineering food that had a specific sensory-specific satiety. In layperson's term, this is the tendency for big, distinct flavors to overwhelm the brain, which then responds by depressing your desire to have more. Intentionally mundane foods like white bread will never get you too excited, but you can eat lots and lots of it without feeling you've had enough. In essence, Moskowitz manipulated our brain's response to food so that its salt and fat content create a constant craving. It gives us a particular crunch and taste that makes us want to keep eating. However, no matter how much we consume, we never feel satisfied. Put very simply, the food industry is not your friend. And in element 2 of your life book, I love that he breaks apart because they're connected, pleasure versus satisfaction. It's one of my favorite lessons that he teaches, and I use it often. Also, Kevin, my husband, talked to one of our food scientists at one of our conventions, and he talked about this very thing and how he previously had worked for a big company. He wouldn't say the name. And he said when he came to Optavia, his heart was just set right because he was at a place working on creating fuel for the body that would serve the body, that wasn't ultra processed. Yes, it's processed, but almonds are processed. Meat's processed too, but it's in a position of processing to create health and wellness, protein carb balance, low glycemic. No, all of the ultra processed means it's got added sugars and salts and high fructose corn syrup. And yes, we have sugar in our products, but it's like honey and natural sweeteners, not aspartame and those things. So it's pretty amazing what this company has done to really create health in our area. So, well, let me turn this off.